I spent 5 years making a documentary that pretty much no one will ever see. And sadly, that is not an uncommon story. I want you to learn from my mistakes, so when you make your next documentary, you can make something enjoyable, viewable, and, could you imagine, profitable. Lenny fra Norg. My voice is a bit hoarse, so this is going to be my very visually acceptable way of having water with me through this process. Let's get to lesson number 1. And don't forget, this is all for free, don't worry. I have a bunch of notes I'll go through in terms of things that I did, things I remember doing, and all the mistakes that I made and how you should not be doing those. So the first thing we'll talk about, of course, is the intro and finding the idea. I think I see this online all the time, actually, in terms of people saying, where do I find a story? I think that's a whole different set of videos. But in terms of whether you're a storyteller or not, you should always be, listening to people and observing the world around you. That is just regular human behavior, right? So in my case, I was a practicing journalist through university and beyond, and filmmaker, etc. So I think more deeply about, this could be a story. But in the meantime, even if you're not those people, we all have that inside of us. Do not forget that. Every human being is a storyteller. This is why we're here today. We've told stories about ourselves to progress in society. And that's why you were born. So for me specifically with this story, I actually did an interview with local Tucson legend Jeff Weber. And I talked a lot about this in that interview, which I can find for us.
Long story short, I'd come back from traveling. I'm back in Tucson. I was in Europe, so I was kind of in that techno house underground scene when I was over there, experiencing a lot of that kind of music, which is very big for them. What I immediately did was I need money because I had spent all my money abroad and I didn't work for the month that I was in Michigan before coming over. And so I immediately needed money. And so as an artist does, I got a job at Pima Federal Credit Union as a bank teller. And I worked that job for 6 months. And so that allowed me to, of course, work under bank hours, which was important to me in terms of you close at 5 and you'd be out by 6. And so basically it allowed me to do stuff in the afternoon and do stuff on the weekend because, banks are closed on Sunday and they're only open till 1 on Saturday. So that gave me the schedule I needed to be able to reach out to the city again and get involved. And this is how I met you. This is how I met Rich, is Creative Tucson came out of that. I was able to operate in a way where I could get involved in things that interested me and put myself out there. It took me actually about a month to figure out that there was this Dazed and Confused thing happening, this scene. And I just reached out for an interview. I was like, I'll interview these people that are doing this, show a little bit of the footage of the shows, and then make a little, profile piece, which I've been kind of doing for years, little profile pieces. And I met Elio and Ashley. What's her name? Ashley Green. Elio So Discreety at Playground before their Wednesday night, night or weekly thing they did. And I went to their first thing, and then I just got hooked.
I wanted to make this 10-minute short form kind of story about these people that I had met, this scene that I finally found. And it was just going to be another thing. The decision I shortly made after that was, no, there's a bigger story here. Let's follow it. And that was mistake number 1, because I very easily allowed myself to be convinced that, oh my God, this could be so huge. Imagine where this could go. This guy's a really fun character. All these people in this scene are amazing. They're helpful. Just the quality of this story could be so good. That's what I was telling myself. And I think that's what they were kind of telling me just by being themselves. And that was definitely mistake number 1, was immediately assuming that this was a documentary. And I think a lot of people make this mistake. because you get excited. And it doesn't matter where you are in your career, it's I think it's impossible not to get excited by a good story. But you need to figure out whether it's the right story or not. And that does come with experience. And, I had done a bunch of stuff before this, but I could just feel that there was something here. And ultimately there was, but along the way, I made some very large mistakes. And the first one was immediately jumping into, this is a thing and I'm going to make it a thing. And there's so much more that should come before that. And that was a problem. So I'll mark this off the list. Yes, mistake number one. What I've learned to do, and what people will advise you to do, myself included, is if you see that there's something important and special there in front of you and you have access to it, that's great. Definitely don't lose that. But you should be making more of a proof of concept where you need to be able to shape where this is going and convince yourself that you can go there and you can get there. So I think the issue is a lot of the time is people think documentary is I'm just going to show up with my camera. I'm going to be a little fly on the wall and I'm just going to observe things and I'm not here. Don't worry. And that's cool. And I think there's definitely a place for that. I enjoy doing that in some scenarios, but I also think that's completely false in a lot of different ways. There's actually a funny quote from the Tom Green documentary that I watched recently.
This is not really a documentary.
What is it?
I don't know. I don't think there's any such thing as a true documentary.
Why? What is a true
Because the camera affects everything.
Ah.
As soon as you document something, you change it, so therefore you're not really documenting it at all, right?
Okay.
Something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Is it unusual for the person who is being a biography of them, is it unusual for them to direct their own biographical movie?
Yeah, you're not supposed to do that.
Well, I don't know if there's rules, but
I think there are.
Are there rules? Who wrote those rules?
I don't know, somebody knows a lot.
Convention.
Somebody who knows a lot about making movies.
Okay.
There's probably a reason for it too.
Well, because you can whitewash what you say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Are you planning to do that?
Yes.
And I'm a true believer in this. You could never be a fly on the wall. That does not exist unless they don't know you're there, which is potentially illegal. So if you're there with the camera, things change. Things have already changed, whether you like it or not. So you should be doing the story justice by building this proof of concept to yourself, even before you're presenting it to others, where you're saying, who are the characters? Where is this going? What is this supposed to be saying? Where do I think this can go and be at the very end of all of this? You don't have to have the right answers for this, but you should at least be asking the questions to yourself. And I didn't do that at all. I was just like, I'll follow this. I'll see where it goes. Let's have some fun. And that was a terrible idea. So for people that are better than myself, especially at that time, this is what you'd normally do in this process. You would build all the stuff for pre-production. You'd build all the stuff for the story. You got to figure out characters. You got to figure out grants and potential fiscal investors, or just people that would give you money, or where would you get money from at all? Things like that matter. I think I have a bunch of this stuff listed. Yeah. Who is your audience? It's crazy to think that you would think about this from the beginning, but you should, because it would do you a huge service. If you thought immediately, who wants to watch this? Because at the time that you're thinking about this, you can then start to mold everything you do moving forward to an audience. But what's cool is, whether you like it or not, you're going to find out that you're most likely wrong about your audience. I'm sure you're right once in a while, or about a very small sector of them, but there are going to be people that want to see your movie that you would never even imagine. And that's the beautiful thing about starting the conversation early, who your audience is. You need to know that you can be open to anyone, but you're hoping for some people. Along the way, you will find new people, and that is only going to make your film more viewable, hopefully more profitable, but also enjoyable to a larger group of people. Most documentaries aren't meant to be just for a little niche group of people. You can do something like that, but it should be palpable for most people. I think a lot of filmmakers pigeonhole themselves where it's either an ego thing or it's probably just an ego thing, to be honest, where they're like, no, I'm making this for these people and like they'll understand. If anyone else doesn't, it doesn't matter. But that is just a falsehood of storytelling. That just pretty much means you aren't telling the story well enough, because any single story you tell should be palpable for the entirety of the world, as long as they have subtitles. So that is a good way to think of story as well, as you're developing the story, figuring out where the arc can go. And again, this is all in the beginning. This is maybe after you just met the subject or you spent one day filming with them and you're like, oh, there's something here. This is all the things you should be doing before you continue. And so let me see what else I have here. Characters, get support, audience, grants, investors, all this kind of stuff. I mean, it's definitely important to touch on the grants, investors, fiscal stuff, because that is a massive mistake that I made, which was at the time, because of my situation, I was working for a production company. I was, also working for public access. I had access to gear and I had access to friendly people that might help once in a while. But I did ultimately do all of this on my own, and that includes the audio. So even when you're a video guy and you have this great little package, at the end of the day, any documentary that I've observed that is quality, you're going to have a lav pack on them, a professional lav pack on them. So they got a mic on them at all times. And then, yeah, of course, you might have, on-camera audio, but you also, a lot of the time, have a professional shotgun, some kind of sound mixer that's got a boom. And this is just that leveling up that you should think about doing. There are situations where, of course, if you just have a nice camera and you got the shotgun mounted on your camera, that might be okay, but you're putting yourself in a very specific box from the gate where you need to be close enough to hear something if something happens. Or you're basically putting the camera in a scenario, a specific scenario, every single time you're shooting. You should be able, which is what most documentarians are able to do, to go 100 yards away and film someone and still be able to hear what they're saying. That is very important because, and I think most people know this and have seen it in practice, is sometimes people say things when you're not around or when they kind of forget that you're around, or they don't think the camera's on them. Again, like we said earlier, everyone knows the camera's around, but they might not remember that you're actually pointing it at them. And I think that is a skill documentarians have sometimes, depending on the story they're trying to tell, is being so mysterious where the subject never actually knows if you're pointing the camera at them or not. And that is a whole different set of skills and a different conversation to have. But what I was saying was you should have professional audio, at the very least, an audio mixer with gear. And that is a massive mistake that I made. And we'll talk about gear in a further episode down the line. But this is the stuff you should be doing before you start your story, is what is a story? Where is it going? What do I need to tell the story properly? And then you bring all that stuff together. It is good to say there is a timing to all of this, and that definitely applied to me. So I knew that things were happening right now, like these parties, these music stuff in the scene, it was happening and people had already left. I had already heard of stories of people that helped start it that were gone. And so I'm like, okay, well, I've already missed something and I don't want to miss more. And that's what I told myself was I need to start doing this tomorrow. And so truly, after that first meeting with the subject, I went to their first party that they had on Halloween. And then immediately after that, I started shooting parties weekly. And then I started ultimately interviewing people for the next year. I truly just dived in. There's actually a funny quote. I remember while I was looking for the clip to show you from Jeff Weber's interview, there's a funny thing that I was deciding between doved, and dived.
Yeah, I dove in really quick. I always have this. Is it dive? Is it doved? Dived? Dove.
Dove.
I thought it was dived.
You dove in. Yeah, that's the whole point of Dove.
Dove.
You don't have to say that.
Yeah. Anyway,
Just dove in.
yeah, for
dove
any
right in.
listeners out there, if you could just figure out which one they were supposed to say.
But yeah, you need to be careful how quickly you dive into the water, because whether you're a beginning documentarian or you're a veteran, you know that feeling that you get. It's like having an IV in you. It's like when you get the taste of the story, it's hard to control wanting to be like, let's do it, like, let's go. And you need to be able to have the foresight to step back and do you and your subjects in the story justice by having a bit more planning. So to go back to the grants and investment stuff, that is a good way to slow yourself down. It's a good way to give you a barometer of, do people like this idea? Am I the right person for this? Should I be building a team around this? That is definitely what grant applications do 100%. And I'm not going to get into race and gender. I don't want to talk about that. But at the very simplest form of it, if you're filling out a grant application, you're going to figure out who you are, how you present yourself, and if you need a team to present yourself and the idea better. You should definitely apply to as many grants as possible. And from day one, you should already be posting about this. And that sounds kind of crazy, but you should even potentially be running a Facebook or Instagram ad to immediately start getting people's emails or to get likes on a post or whatever it is. We are now in a time where it doesn't matter anymore. There's no excuse. Even when you have an idea, you should be posting about it immediately. Whether that idea comes to fruition or not does not matter, because building an audience needs to be a day one thing. And so many people, even to this day, don't do it. They wait until like in the middle of their story or towards the end of the story, they're in post-production. We're going to try to build an audience. You're too late. You're truly too late. And the issue is that the internet now is far too saturated, and too many people with money are able to buy attention on that internet that is far too saturated already. So for you to try to just weasel your way in at the end of your film and be like, I made this thing, enjoy, like, no, that's not going to happen. And if it does, you are very lucky and it will never happen again. So the thing is you should immediately be building a presence around your film, telling people about it, sharing it on the internet, finding groups of people that want to follow you along on this. And that also ties into the grant and investment stuff. It doesn't need to be a GoFundMe, it doesn't need to be a whatever, but sooner or later you're going to find someone with money or someone that knows someone with money. And that's the point. Grants are hard to get, but it's still worth going for them. And if and when you find these people outside of that grant world, they might even connect you to these people. But finding someone that loves this story, maybe loves the subject matter, and wants to see this come to life, those are the people that put 10, 20 grand in your account every year to get you through the year. And that's something that I regret so deeply not doing. Because again, like I said earlier, it is an injustice to your story, to yourself, and to everyone involved to not give this thing resources. And although I have the skills to do it, and I did it, that's not the point. I did everything on my own with a little bit of help here and there, and it shows. And it truly shows that this was just me making something. And that can be cute, and it can be cool, and it can be heartwarming. It's like, oh, look at this cool thing I made with like these people, and that's great. It definitely feels like that now that I look back on it 10 years later almost now. But it's not right. And you and everyone else involved deserve better. So find a way to get money or attention that could potentially get you money later. Let's see what else we got on here. Oh, okay. Okay. So the last thing I put, it's kind of a great way to wrap this up. Let me look at episode 2 first. Okay, yeah. So like I said earlier, but to add on to that a little bit, my note said you need to be able to remove yourself from the hype of that first like tunnel vision you have of like, this is going to be it. This is the story. And everyone has that, and it's a beautiful thing. Just the energy that every documentarian brings to their story. You can tell they all think it's going to be the next big thing, which is great. You need that. Do not lose that. But at the same time, doing all these things allows you to remove yourself and get that aerial view of like, okay, let me just take a look down on what's going on here and what might happen. Because if you can do that and you allow yourself to do that, then you allow to see yourself if you're about to tell the right story. I'm going to say that one more time. You need to be able to look down on this thing and tell yourself, is this the right story? Because, and I'll get into this later, there could be a different story there, or there could be a story that a larger audience might want to see. So just because you have found a very specific story with this person, subjects, etc., doesn't mean it needs to be exactly that. So I'll leave you with that. Episode 2 is going to be about, and this is so important, the legal stuff, the contracts, the agreements, the things you put in place in the very beginning to protect yourself, to protect your subjects, to protect the story from going off the rails, from being shut down, from being stolen, etc., etc. So that'll be episode 2. Thank you for watching. I'll see you then. Cheers.
And I don't think anyone had a plan, to be honest. That's what I loved about it, was there was the idea of they knew that this was the time to do it, and so they were going to do it, and they just took advantage of it.